from hillbilly crime.
You can't hide from hillbilly crime.
You can't hide from hillbilly crime.
You may not know that there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair.
Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dark pass away, get the sound of a shotgun shell.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. Skeletons covering the mountainside. A treacherous reality in the pines.
Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't mask their cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise. All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Winter reveals the hidden lie. Moonlight could mask their cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hillbilly Crime. If you've not been here before, you've been missing out. Grab you something to drink, grab you a seat, and hang on for the Hillbilly train. All right, Zelmy's not going to be with us this evening. She's tired. She's been outside working in her yard all day. And so we're going to do tonight's show on the Forgetful Grandmother. Now, if any of you are not familiar with this case, her name is Tracey Nix. And just to kind of give you a little rundown, her daughter had some children, her grandchildren, and she had a little boy. And the little boy had just started walking, and she was babysitting. And she said he fell asleep in the chair, and she sat back and fell asleep. And the next thing she knew, when she woke up, she couldn't find the baby. And so she ran through the house looking for him. She couldn't find him. She ran outside, jumped in the car, ran up the road, ran back down the road. And then she said she saw something floating in the pond that looked like a soccer ball or something. And so she said she tore out through the field in her car, and it was the baby. and she pulled him out of the water, but it was too late. They couldn't save him. Well, then later on, her daughter went on to have a little girl. I'm not sure how many years had elapsed between the death of the baby and her babysitting this new one. We're going to find out, though. We're going to watch a few clips here, and it'll tell us how many years. I'm sure we'll see it. But so she was asked to babysit this new little girl, and she took it out to lunch with her and her friends. She came back, and there was some things that happened that weren't like her in her normal routine. And she left the baby in the car, and she went inside and did whatever she was doing. And then the baby was left in a hot car. And so the grandmother was charged. And it's just a tragic situation. But it's it touches me. I feel like I can relate some to the forgetfulness. It comes out later on that she had been on Ambien for 20 years. And it wasn't until she went to jail that they saw what, or I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, but we're going to find out when we watch the thing. But if I'm not mistaken, they said it wasn't until she went to jail, or she had gotten arrested or something, that they were looking at her medications and saw she had been over-medicated for 20 years on sleeping medicine. And I've taken Ambien before. I had it prescribed to me long time ago. And it was dangerous. I would take it, and then I would forget that I took it, and I would take another one. And I had to quit. I told my doctor I didn't want him to give it to me anymore, for the simple fact that the way that it messed with my memory. And then the next day, it was like I was on a blackout. I couldn't remember anything, nothing, from the time I took my medicine until the time I woke up. I didn't remember anything. And then I was way low on my medicine, and because I couldn't remember if I took it. So it was, and I see a lot of those same things, and I only took it for like a couple months, and I had them. I quit taking it because I was afraid that I would accidentally take too much, and not wake up one morning. And it's just really hard for me to believe that, well, I don't know, people, if they've never been exposed to addiction, they may not have known it. They may not have realized that that is what was going on. But, it is an addictive medication as well. So everybody's already in here. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Justice Jane, hello. Let me get us going, and we'll watch these clips here. How is everybody this evening? Everybody doing good? Let's see. All right. So we're going to watch this one first. This was after the verdict. This is going to be from Court TV, and I put the descriptions in the links in the description. So if anybody wants to go watch them, you can.
Guilty verdict earlier today. Let's take a listen.
I was relieved to hear that there was going to be accountability and ownership and a conclusion to this part of this story. One of the things that we have struggled with through this whole case has been the exclusion of the story, which is my son that drowned in her care. And so for us, this is a win for Uri. But I have a son named Ezra, and he is not been spoken of. And he died in her care. And I don't have any accountability or any answers for that. And I continue to look for those answers to what happened in that case and why that case was not worthy of prosecution at that time. So we're going to be going back in with the state and having a few more conversations to see. But in this moment, we are relieved. The daughter and me had a very hard time with her being taken, and I ended up stepping aside for that moment. And it isn't something that I would ever call a win for me. It is a win for justice for my daughter. And we are grateful to the jurors that spent their time, the experts, the police and EMTs, and everyone that played a hand in this trial, and your time and the energy you guys spent, as well as you guys from the media. I'm truly grateful for giving my story a voice and giving our kids a chance for the world to see that they were incredibly wanted and loved and valued to us. I was deeply saddened when my sister had to testify. This trial process has been complicated, but it broke my heart to see her and to have it brought back to memory that there was personal events in their life that day that she had damaged in her world as well. And I adore my son or my nephew, Aiden. And I hate so deeply that he's traumatized by this, including the court process, including all of this, because he's a teenager. And I think that I struggled the most with her testimony, and also just listening to the recording of my mom, I think, go on a long time about where she was, where she was going,
and the fact
what was she going to do, and never praying, oh my God, Uri, oh my God, granddaughter, where's my granddaughter? What happened to her?
It was her keeping the information from us instead of telling us. That was upsetting. And we are happy ultimately with what the state provided for us in terms of this case with Uri. And I continue to look for a way to address my son Ezra's issue, because it's something I feel worthy of attention. For it being not guilty, it does sting. I'm thankful though that we did get something. I didn't want to walk out of there and see her walk away like she's been for the past 2 years and just being out and about. I was glad to see that the jury did see our side of it, even though they didn't push for the maximum sentence. It was still, like I said, a form of justice.
Well, and as her daughter, I've struggled the whole time with understanding why there couldn't just be that ownership and what did happen. Like, why did we do this? The destruction that has come from this process is pretty unfathomable as well. You know, my kids are dead, but I've lost a lot more.
Yes, from that perspective. And it's,
we advocate for our children.
Yeah.
Talking with the assistant attorney, was there any indication on what she was found guilty on and how much time she would potentially be looking at for a sentence?
He was saying that the maximum for the conviction that she had was 5 years. But he was very unsure whether or not they were going to arrest her there.
Go into further details and all of it kind of played out in front of us.
But the thing is,
having much time to take that in.
The judge knew of my son's story. You know what I mean? They're familiar with that, and the jury didn't know the judge was very familiar with it. And so
her defense was prepared to shut down a case containing Ezra, which is why they had so many hearings, and ultimately he was excluded from this trial.
We got our son Asher, and we just had a newborn. She is fixing to be 5 months old now, and so we focus on those, and we focus on building. We are always going to be thinking of our children, but I can't neglect my son that I have, and I'm not going to hurt them. It's a day at a time, in a sense.
And when it comes to my family, I mean, that is complicated. And due to certain circumstances, I was already pretty well distanced. And there are some members I haven't spoken to in years. And that breaks my heart. And I would want nothing more for that to be different. But the damage has been felt in that way greatly. And I don't know how we recover. I want that. I want us to have a family. But right now it seems very complicated.
That's heartbreaking. Okay. We're going to go to this one. Give me a second here.
Tracey Howard Nix.
Ms. Nix, obviously, you are the defendant in this case. You have 2 children?
I do.
Okay. And their names?
Kaila Suzanne Nix and Rebecca Ann Nix.
Okay. Kayla is your firstborn child?
She is.
Okay. When you were pregnant with her, was that a difficult pregnancy?
It was difficult getting pregnant. It wasn't, the pregnancy itself was not difficult, but getting pregnant was very difficult.
And how did her birth make you feel?
How did what?
How did her birth make you feel?
I'm glad that you're sitting there, Kaila, because I want to speak directly to you. That's why I'm sitting here facing you. Your dad and I didn't want to have children right up front. And, you have this thought that when you want to have children, that it'll just happen. And that's not what happened with you. I went through fertility. We tried on our own for a long time. And then I went through fertility drugs to try to have you. And then I went through surgery to clean everything out and to try to have you. And I tell you that because I want you to know how much you were wanted and how much you were loved. I thought you were the most beautiful girl that had ever been born on this planet. I thought you were the smartest girl that I had ever seen. Was I a perfect mom? No. No, I wasn't. But I love you. And I have always loved you with all my heart. And I tell you that because I can't imagine taken from me. I cannot imagine that. And then if Rebecca had also been taken, it would have been more than I could have taken in. And that's the only way that I can understand what you've been going through and what Drew's been going through. I miscarried, but I didn't lose a baby like you've lost a baby. And I've tried very hard to understand where you've come from, where you are, and how I could be anything to you. I guess I answered that. What more?
You've been on medication, oral medication for a long time. That's when you did those medications were.
No,
You trust your medical provider?
I did.
Who all in your family went to this?
Rebecca did, and I think Kaila did. I believe Kaila did as well.
And when did you?
If you'll allow me, I need to back up just a little bit. May I?
Yes.
I know that both of you have felt that I have evaded questions. I haven't evaded questions. I wasn't allowed to talk to you. I wasn't given the opportunity to talk to you. And I think that the one piece ones have alluded to how things happen, but the piece that has been left out, and I wouldn't expect her on this particular day. Kaila asked me, said she was getting her hair fixed, and asked me if I would any day of any week or as long as they needed me to. I love my grandchildren, and I would have done anything for them. So when she asked me to take her, you know, it disrupted what my head had in mind for that day, but I was glad to have her. So after I had a prayer time that morning, and I called Kaila and asked her, I said, a few ladies wanted to get together and go to Beef O'Grady's. Does she mind? She had already asked me, and I had said that I would. I said, do you mind if I take her with me? And she said, no, that would be fine. So the piece that was left out is that when I went to the glass shop to pick her up, Kaila helped me. I had Uriel in my arms, and she had the car seat. And I always put the babies on behind the passenger side so that I could see them out of my periphery. There was when your baby's sitting behind the passenger side, you always can just turn your head a small amount and see them. That particular day, there was a car that was passenger side of my car. And when Kaila Schock took the car seat around to the passenger side to put it in, as I had asked her, the car was too close and Kaila couldn't get the car seat in the car. So where I was sitting behind the driver's seat, and we went on about our business. She was the talk of the town at Beef O'Grady's. We thoroughly enjoyed her. She was, and when everything was over and I put her back in the car seat, I very succinctly and carefully had everything all packaged up, and I poured under her car seat. And she was so sleepy, I think from just being on that whole time, that I gave her her bottle. And she, but seconds of me backing up. So when I pulled in at the house, there were roofers. We were having our roof redone, and they had asked me to not pull into the garage because he didn't know if there'd be stray nails or whatever in the driveway or on the driveway. So I backed up under an oak tree, and over to the passenger side in the back. I looked in the passenger side in the front. Nothing was there. And so I got out of the car.
I want to say something. You know, most of us kind of know, right? Like what she was saying there about putting the baby behind the passenger side seat. So that way, she explained it. Like before I heard her testify here, I felt like everybody else did. But once she explained all this, it was kind of like one thing right after another that set up the perfect storm for her to not remember that baby back there. I mean, we can beat her up all we want to, but I mean, it's not going to bring anybody back. You know, we just got to keep the whole family in our prayers. Absolutely. And we don't want to victim shame or blame anybody. But you know that if she had been on that medicine for 20 years, her family had to have noticed some kind of forgetfulness or sleepiness or something if she had any of those side effects. I mean, and I'm just speculating, of course, but it just seems to me like they would. And after losing one, I just don't know. I would have been, well, we don't know how we would have been. We can't say what we'd do one way or the other. But what I wanted to say there was, since the car was too close and they couldn't get that car seat in behind the passenger side seat, this is kind of like note to self. I'm making a note to myself. If you have to go over on the driver's side, we'll take that couple extra, spurts of energy to scoot that car seat on over to the passenger side. Don't just put it in behind the driver's seat. Take that extra minute to make sure that you push them on over there. It's just so heart-wrenching. But wait until she gets completely done, and then you all tell me if it changed your mind any, or if it made you see it from a different perspective at all. It did me. It did me.
And I went in the house and began to do the things that I had on my mind to do. And this is perhaps where the medication does come in. She got quiet, and I forgot. She was quiet. There was nothing in my head that I needed to do. So I may I go on from here, or do you want? I literally forgot it for a long period of time. I did know that I had made plans with Aiden, which is my oldest grandson, to take him to Walmart in Sebring to look for some Christmas ideas for him. And then I was going to take him to dinner and have him early because it was a school night. He was about 4:15 or so. He was feeding and I pulled up to the barn, and Nay came with his lawnmower around, so that my driver door and where he was sitting in the lawnmower, I just opened up my driver door and we could talk. And we were just chatting about, I don't even know what. And I said, when did Kaila come for Uriel? And he just looked at me. He said, I've been outside. I don't know. And then I said, when did Kaila come for Uriel? And it began to dawn on me. And then I opened the door and realized I saw that she had passed when I looked in the car. And I ran back behind the barn to the west side of the barn. I looked for anything I could find to hurt myself. I wanted to be gone. I did not want to have to deal. I didn't want to have to look at Kaila and Drew and tell them that this had happened. I wanted to be gone. But there was nothing there. And there was not any way that anything that I could find that would do that. So I fell on my face and I asked God just to take me. I said, I'm done. I'm done. I need you to just take me. And he wouldn't.
How do you feel about what happened?
I'm broken about what happened. I don't want to leave anyone with the thought that I'm making excuses, because I'm not. I was forthcoming with the detective. I asked to be taken to the sheriff's department. The video that you saw at the trial was during that time of me being in the sheriff's one of the interrogation rooms. When the detective came in, she asked me if I felt like giving a statement or talking about what happened. And without a lawyer, I told her everything I knew. I was not trying to hide anything. I didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to live at that moment, but I wasn't trying to hide anything. It ended up that I did go to Peace River, and I did it by choice, not because I was forced to do that. I'm going to do to myself. I didn't get there until late night or early morning. And of course, there was no sleeping that night. And Kaila, you said that you had heard my voice. I don't even remember coming out of the bedroom or the room that I was in the next day. I'm sure that you're telling the truth on that. I just simply don't remember leaving the room. Usually that's a 72-hour hold. I stayed 2 weeks. And I stayed 2 weeks because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how I could possibly handle looking at Kaila and Drew ever again, or Joanne and Greg ever again, or Nay. I love my grandbabies. Joanne and Greg love their grandbabies. Nay loves his grandbabies. And I just simply did not know what else to do, but just go there and try to keep my head on my shoulders. So every day, the next day after I got there, I told you I got there late night, early morning, and so they had me go to bed, which was ridiculous. But the next day I saw the psychiatrist, and that is what I think it was Dr. Estevez described, that he immediately took me off of my medicines. He said that the medicine, that the Ambien, they had me on, just so you know, and I'm going to take a small step back. Drew, I don't know if you remember you coming into the house. Kaila had asked me to come over, and I was sitting at your house, and I just was watching her at the house. And you came in maybe around 12:30 or 1 o'clock. And I walked over, I got her settled, and I walked over to you and I said, we haven't talked about Ezra. And I don't want to talk to you until you feel ready to talk. And when you feel ready to talk, please let me know. and I'll tell you anything you want to know. And then Kaila got up from her nap and she came out. And I said the same thing to you. I said, I told Drew what I just said, and I don't know that you're ready to hear it yet.
Officer Martin told me that there were charges for Ezra that day. That's why he came home. That's why I went to my room. I told you that.
You were taking a nap that day because you had asked me to come by and just sit with her that day. And when you came out, I said to you, whenever you guys were ready to talk about Ezra, that I would do that. And I never heard back from either of you. So I wasn't avoiding talking with you. I was waiting on you to tell me you were ready to talk.
And that's why I'm gonna, and I understand.
Okay. And I've kind of lost where I was. That was the last thing I said before I went off on that. Can they read it back to me so that I know what the last thing?
This is an ECR, electronic recording. We don't have live court recording.
Okay.
To rely on what you discussed, or your lawyer can redirect you.
All right. I really do forget where I was.
Kaila or Uriel Schock.
I think that you have the impression that I have not grieved and that I have not cared about your children. Drew, I particularly picked that up from you, and that could not be farther from the truth. After she was gone, I stayed in bed for what felt like weeks. I didn't eat. I didn't care if I ate. I didn't take care of my physical being. I didn't want to go outside. I would tell Nay over and over, I know that you want to fix something for dinner. I just don't care. And I was like that a long time until finally I decided I had to do something about it. And the courts were good enough to allow me to go to Blackberry. Blackberry was an alcohol, drug, and trauma center. And I was there for trauma, and I was there 7 weeks. So I spent 2 weeks at Peace River and 7 weeks at Blackberry. It did help because I saw a psychiatrist every day, a therapist. I saw one of them. Fear in just going straight into some sort of counseling was that if I ever opened that box and then didn't see somebody for another week, I would never have been able to handle that. But after 7 weeks of intensive attention and therapy, when I got home, I began every Friday, actually before that with my head now. But the second I began to talk about Kaila or about Uri or Ezra, I just, that's the trigger, and I just fall apart because I love them so much. And I want to just go on and make another comment that Drew said, that I had not received an apology because I wasn't allowed to talk to you. I wasn't allowed to be close to you. But let me tell you something. I would give anything, including my life, if Uriel or Ezra or both of them could be here. And I mean that. I would give my life if they could be here. But that is not how God wanted that to be. And I can't explain it beyond that. But that's not how God wanted it to be. So I've got to figure out how to live myself. I woke up even just 2 weeks ago. This has been 2 years and 4 months ago, and 3 years and 5 months, 3 months ago for Ezra. But I woke up 2 weeks ago out of a dead sleep in the middle of the night. And the first thing I sat up, and the first thing on my mind was, what can I do to hurt myself? What can I do to get out of this? What can I do? And I thought of all these different ways I could hurt myself or die. I wanted to die because I would never hurt your babies on purpose. You've got to know that. You've got to know that. I just would never hurt them on purpose. I love your babies with all of my heart. I love. To say I'm sorry is so menial, but maybe if I told you that I would literally lay my life down for them, maybe that would make the I'm sorry more meaningful.
I think this is where she goes kind of off the rails. I think her daughter, if just speculating purely, if I was her daughter, I think that's all I would want, is just for you to say I'm sorry. So many people think like she's getting ready to say right now, saying the words I'm sorry just isn't enough. It's not even me, but it is to them. It is to the person that needs to hear them say, I'm sorry. You know, and both of those babies are gone. And so I think when she goes on here about, I would lay my life down for them, I'd lay my life down for them, I think this right here is where the judge picked up that remorse versus sorrow thing. That's just my opinion. But I think because she, bless her heart. I can relate to her though, because I'll be talking about something, and if Alan distracts me, or if the dog distracts me or something, shoot, everything I'm talking about will go right out of my head. It's like I got this fog, and I don't know what it's from, but I still have moments of forgetfulness, that are scary. But I just wish she would have stopped and said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. Fall on your face and beg and say, I'm so sorry. It's hard. Sometimes it's really hard for people to say, I'm sorry, but it's also so simple. It's just 2 little words.
I would do that if it would bring them back. You've got to know that. And I am desperately, desperately sorry for the pain that you've endured, for the loss, Joanne and Greg, of your grandbabies, for Nay. Nay has stepped up and he's done all the dirty work. He's done with strength, and he's not going to get to see his grandbabies either. I don't know what else to say. I could probably babble on, but the important thing is that you know that I wouldn't hurt your babies. I just wouldn't. I think I did leave a part out when we were talking about the car. and the baby and Kaila Schock put the car seat back behind my seat. I think I did say that though. That
You couldn't see.
and I couldn't see them. Yes, I did say that. Okay.
I hear about Ezra. Hear about you. Saw the court order indicating the finding was that you were asleep at the time Ezra passed and they had left. But you still feel guilty about it.
Oh yeah, yes, I do. As soon as there were toys in the floor. We're talking about Ezra. There were toys in the floor, all over the floor, and every toy this day and time makes a noise of some sort. And Ezra and I had a pattern when he was at the house. I have a red chair. And I would sit in the red chair, and about, 10 o'clock or so, he'd climb up and I would rock him to sleep and he would take a nap. And this particular day, he climbed up in the seat without me. And when I walked in the room, Nay was standing behind him and he was rocking the chair because he never gets to do that. That's always my joy to do that. And so Nay was standing behind him and rocking the chair, and he fell asleep in the chair. And instead of picking him up and putting him in my lap, I let him sleep there because that was important to Nay, that he had put him to sleep. So I sat on the corner of the couch with only an end table in between us. We weren't 3 feet apart from one another. And I leaned my feet back. I laid the chair back. And I dozed off. I did. And he was asleep and I was asleep. And Nay ended up leaving to go to Walmart. I woke up. I didn't go in a real deep sleep, but I don't know how Ezra made it through the living room without hitting a toy because there were so many. And so when I opened my eyes, he wasn't in the chair. So I sprinted literally around the house and I got in the car and I went down the driveway and I turned to the left and went to the stop sign, and I turned to the right and went down a small distance, knowing that his little leg. And when I came back from going west, I cut across the pasture because I saw something that looked like a little volleyball or something in the water. And I just cut straight across the pasture. I got out of the car before I even put on the brakes, and I scampered over. I hurried over, and I got him out, and I began doing CPR on him, and I screamed for the neighbor, and the neighbor called 911, and we were doing all that we could do. The only thing that we can figure is it was Christmas time, and we had white reindeer. And maybe he was enamored by the reindeer, and then the reindeer were probably 15 feet or so from the pond, and there were ducks in the pond, and that's the best that we can figure as to what brought him there.
And you don't know how he got out.
I don't know how he got out.
Okay. And you weren't aware he could open the door.
I was not aware he could open the door.
I want you all to pay attention to right here, what she's getting ready to say. Listen to what doorknobs she says they had on their house. Their house was not baby proofed. All of these little things add up, and you see 2 complete tragic situations just from certain things that, I don't know. Some of us are taught and some I guess aren't. I don't know. But listen to what she says.
He had started walking a handful of weeks before that. but I had never seen him reach for it's a lever handle, and I'd never seen him reach for.
Is that length in it prior to?
Yes, we have.
Anything else you'd like to say to the court, to the family?
Your Honor, whatever your decision is, I want you to know that I'm already in prison. No one can do more to themselves than I have done every day, and I think about it. I go to bed every night and I think about it, and I will do that until I draw my last breath. So you may feel like you need to do something more, and I will understand that. But do want to last all of my life.
State.
No, the trial's already over.
Just have one question, Your Honor. And I'm sorry, one of them was excuses, and then you listed off a bunch of things such as medication and Kaila Schock putting the seat in the wrong spot. I just want to know from you, why isn't Uri here with us then?
First of all, not making excuses. Those were factual events. And Uri is not here because I left her in the car.
Okay, question, all right, anything, maybe she may.
All right, and we've got one more. It's the judge sentencing her. So she was facing 2 different charges. She was facing, let me read it here. Give me a second. Everything's working real slow tonight. All right. Let me read what they've got down here. Well, it doesn't say. Okay. So, to the best of my recollection, she was charged with like aggravated manslaughter, I think was one of them. And then there was a lesser charge. And the jury found her not guilty of the higher one, and they found her guilty of the lesser charge. So let me get us up here.
In this trial, I picked up this case. I started down here July 1. I picked up this case, and I did the motion for motion and limit. And
this is, let me tell you who it's from. This is from ABC Action News, just to make sure we give them their credit. They're all the links are in the description.
I know exactly what I wrote and what I ruled. You can't use other contacts to show bad character or propensity. There has to be clear and convincing. But it doesn't negate the fact, just because I didn't use that event, it occurred. And it was with, and when I hear today situations and testimony about where the seat was put in the driver's side because Kaila Nix did it, not Miss Tracey Nix, the defendant, did it, that's inconsistent with the deposition testimony that Kaila Nix said, and it's also inconsistent with what she wrote in her victim impact statement. Then I listened to her testimony about the juror was sleepy and gave a bottle and immediately fell asleep. And there's a video, and I don't recall seeing that, But I also recall in the trial, they talked about giving the baby a straw and some water in a straw, and that this was a situation where the baby didn't have food and milk. And I went through, and I'm going to come down to this in a minute, but the evidence that comes in, I wasn't there, you weren't there. The only people that were there were Miss Nix, and at the time, we get evidence after the fact, and when we're sitting in the room and we're watching it, it comes in. Like, here's the back seat of the car, evidence 41 that came in. Here's the front seat of the vehicle, 40, where there's wipes and things in a car. And when people go places with kids, they leave objects, thread on the steering wheel, things in the front seat to remind them where they had a child. And I'm not talking about a child that was there, you had an hour-long, 2-hour-long drive. I'm talking a 7 to 9 minute drive. Here's the exhibit 29. It's the back seat of the car. There's evidence everywhere. Then we see the picture of when Nay and them got there. That's evidence 23. I then have a half-empty thing, a bottle, evidence 35. So I see all of that, and I see all the reminders. And then I remember Kaila Nix saying that the Lexus, the red Lexus, was equipped with a red rear occupant alert to alert an adult to a child in the back seat. And I know that these cars, Fords, Lexuses, everything has so much weight in the back seat, beep beeps go off. And I hear her saying I didn't have that. But then I read the deposition taken of Kaila Nix, docket entry 201, October 1, 24. Do you know who put the car seat, page 32, line 5 to 7? You know who put the car seat into the car that day she picked Uriel up at the glass shop? I do not. I do know it was her tendency to put the car seat in herself. Okay, Kaila, answer. She typically, whether I was standing there or not, would pick her up and set her in there. And then I would typically help reach over and strap her in. But a car has sensors, weight sensors. So that, just like my vehicle, whenever I stop and put it in park and turn it off, there's a loud ding that says, check your back seat if there's weight in the seat. And so those are things that I'm aware of that were in a vehicle. So when she put her in there, I do not imagine that I had any other staff assist her in the moment putting her car seat. Did she normally put the car seat behind the passenger or driver's seat? I have her telling me it was in the driver's seat because Kaila did it, and I have Kaila saying that it was typically in the driver's seat. And then I have these tendencies and these things that I see that show that there's a baby in the car. And let's not forget that we just left Beefville Grady's. This child was the apple of everyone's eye there. I've been to the Beefville Grady's. I've had lunch there. There's a lengthy video. There's a video of the car in the parking lot. At the end of the day, Uriel Schock presented this evidence to me through her testimony, her victim impact statement, and her the deposition. The defense has presented to me the witnesses and the evidence. What I know for a fact is Tracey Nix left Uriel in the car at 2 p.m. for over 3 hours. At no time during the 10,800 seconds that elapsed did she think 1 second about her granddaughter. Uriel Schock was there for 2.5 hours with her that day. And she just saw her 7 to 9 minutes before, and then she goes to the residence 7 to 9 minutes away. This child, like I said earlier, was the apple of everybody's eye. It captivated, entertained the patrons and the people at Beefville Grady's, much like a 7-month-old does, a year-old does, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old does. You know what you're doing with them, and in 7 to 9 minutes, by golly, you know where that child is. And anything to the contrary, and any excuse to the contrary is just that. I heard and saw the body cam footage along with the interrogation room video of Tracey Nix immediately discovering what happened after she has a grandchild passed away. She was distraught. I don't believe there's a lot of remorse in that about her grandchild suffering and death. Rather, I see her more concerned with her community image and the death of the child. I want to leave. I want to go away. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I hear today the evidence and the testimony, and I get a little more remorse on that, but is it truly remorse? Tracey Nix, throughout these proceedings, has contended these acts were involuntary. She couldn't form the requisite intent to commit a crime. Her narrative is that she forgot because of senility or by taking her prescribed mind-altering medications. There's no credible evidence to the court that's persuaded this court to mitigate her sentence as the attorneys have requested. This defendant, like many other defendants facing prison sanctions before, is trying to avoid or lessen a prison sentence once arrested and after a jury finds them guilty. They justify what happened rather than accepting blame and truly evidencing remorse. I have practiced law for 30 years. I've sat on this bench for over 3.5 years. I've met my share of people in the Florida state prison system, the federal system, and I understand that they minimize their conduct and they also don't accept responsibility. And that's how it is. There's a pile of them down at Hardy Correctional that'll tell you the same stories that I heard here today. The ultimate determination of when we do a case, and I excluded the evidence of the experts on the defense side. It's when you look at whether a defendant is competent to proceed, it's my determination in state court, in a trial court. Under the Dougherty v. State case, 149 Southern 3rd, 672 at 678, the trial court is not bound by the reports or opinion of experts. The defense in this case never afforded nor volunteered Tracey Nix to the state of Florida to have her evaluated by its own experts. So the state of Florida, the citizens of Florida, were denied the right to contest the evaluation and procedures and conclusions of the Tracey Nix retained hired experts. They all say we're here for our time. They don't come, they come in here, they get paid, they give their opinion. They give their opinion. If it's valid for the defense, they testify. If it's not valid for the defense, they don't testify. I heard this man's testimony. In a competency or an insanity case, the state has the right to contest the evaluation procedures and the conclusions of the court-appointed experts. Had she alleged incompetence or not guilty by reason of insanity, the state of Florida and all the citizens would have the ability, the state would have had the ability to hire its own experts to evaluate her mental and physical claims. The state was not afforded that here. And that's why we have a 35-year-old law that says you can't bring in diminished capacity. I ruled on that. I'm not going to revisit that rule. The state, as a representative body for the citizens of Florida, has a right to a fair determination and meaningful opportunity to be heard to conduct its own review of Tracey Nix. All of her defense experts were hired for their time and to defend her. They had unbridled access to her so they could present their opinions to the court. What I noticed was there was no, what did the MRI findings say? I don't know. I wasn't given that. There are many tests that mental health experts can perform and routinely do perform on criminal defendants to determine if a criminal defendant is falsifying or exaggerating facts or symptoms. There's called malingering. There's no medical records nor testimony presented to this court that she suffers from Alzheimer's, dementia, or senility November 1 of 2022. None of the defense experts have testified they tested Tracey Nix for malingering or confabulation. They simply say, trust us, we are experts. The court declines to do that. In Florida, the term for imprisonment for a second-degree felony is up to 15 years in prison. First degree is up to 30 years. Life is up to a defendant's life. And in a capital case, I can sentence somebody to death if the aggravating factors exceed the mitigating factors. In this case, Tracey Nix has been found guilty of a third-degree felony, punishable by a maximum of 5 years in Florida State Prison. On January 15, 2025, a jury found the defendant guilty of one count of leaving a child in a motor vehicle in excess of 15 minutes, causing great bodily harm, but in reality causing death, and not guilty of one count of aggravated manslaughter. I've already gone over what I've talked about with Rule 3.704D9 about the victim injury points. Her score sheet is 44 points. Under Florida law, the maximum sentence I can impose for Tracey Nix is 60 months or 5 years in Florida State Prison. For me, as a trial court, to impose a departure sentence, it's a two-step process under Banks v. State, 732 Southern 2nd, 1065, 1067. First, I must determine whether I can depart. That is, whether a legal basis exists for the departure sentence that has been established by a preponderance of the evidence. Two, even if a valid and supported legal ground exists to permit a departure sentence, the trial court must still determine whether it should depart and whether a departure sentence is the best sentencing option in a given case. Two facts the defense argued in their motion to mitigate. 9, that Tracey cooperated with the state of Florida to resolve the offenses she was charged with on November 1, 2022. The court finds that not to be the case here. Tracey Nix did not cooperate. There's no competent, substantial evidence that the crime she was charged with was resolved as a result of her cooperation. To the contrary, she investigated it. She went to trial. She didn't enter a plea to count 2. She didn't cooperate with law enforcement or the state prosecutor. The second ground they sought mitigation is 10, which is an unsophisticated, isolated incident. There's 3 elements that must be proven by the defendant when you raise that mitigation, not 1 or 2. Number 1, Tracey Nix has to prove to the court that the offense was committed in an unsophisticated manner. Number 2, it was an isolated incident and she has shown remorse. All 3 elements have to be proved. You can't prove 1 or 2, all 3. Tracey Nix and her husband had the 17-month Ezra at their home who died 11 months earlier. That is a fact. That came in every hearing I've been in, and I've heard it today as well. The grandchild Uriel Schock's tragedy is not an isolated incident. This is the second. The court watched and heard her interview. I do not believe she's showing remorse. I believe she's showing sorrow. It is impossible for a defendant who refuses to accept responsibility for an offense to show remorse for that offense. Sympathy is not the same as remorse. Sorrow is not the same as remorse. What I look at in the Florida statutes, when I deal with sentencing under 921.02, subsection 1B, the criminal punishment code's primary purpose is to punish an offender. Rehabilitation is subordinate to the goal of punishment. Subsection C, penalty imposed shall be commensurate with the severity of the primary offense and the circumstances surrounding the primary offense. The court does not find that the defendant's sentencing proposal is the best sentencing option. Rather, Tracey Nix should spend the next 60 months in Florida State Prison with credit for time served. The trial court is guided by the code, the sentencing guidelines, and the express purpose for criminal sanctions under Florida law, and a Florida State Prison sentence of 60 months is the best sentencing option. The court also finds that she knew how she was feeling on November 1. The multiple videos, some with audios that day, and the testimony of her Bible study and many friends unequivocally established her awareness that day she is not competent, nor is she insane. She caused Uriel Schock to suffer an agonizing, prolonged death that was avoidable. The court saw all the evidence in the photos. I want to note the diaper bag that was brought into evidence, Exhibit 36, Exhibit 37, Exhibit 38, Exhibit 39, was the most organized diaper bag I've ever seen in my life. And I heard testimony that the child didn't have food, this, that, and the other thing in the beef O'Brady's, and they fed her through a straw. I note that it was an excellent diaper bag. The bottles, food, medicine, and the items were all in quart bags, Ziploc bags. For witnesses to say or allude that Uriel had no milk, formula, food is hypocritical and untrue. The court finds such testimony by any such witnesses not credible for sentencing purposes. The defense's recitation of their mitigating factors without confirmation by any unbiased expert, in addition to the deficiencies the court found earlier, also fails to establish by a preponderance of the evidence any mitigation that is to be considered by the court today, nor do they amount to competent, substantial evidence for this or any court to justify a sentence of less than 5 years in Florida State Prison. The defendant restrained Uriel Schock in a car seat, and the child was severely injured before she died. There were plenty of signs to Tracey Nix that she had a baby in her car that day and she was responsible to protect it. She failed in her protection of Uriel. I will not fail this state or this community in my duties as a judge to fashion a sentence that I feel is appropriate for these type of charges. You can call it whichever one of the 5 points you call it, but I'm calling it a just and determinate sentence based upon the facts and evidence that I have seen here and heard here and presented today. The court hereby sentences Tracey Nix to Florida State Prison for a term of 5 years of Florida or 60 months with credit for all time served. A $5,000 fine shall be reduced to a judgment lien. The cost of prosecution and restitution will be reserved for 60 days. Y'all can agree on it or we'll have another hearing. She will be remanded under the supervision of the Department of Correction until her term of prison ends. Now I'm going to speak to this community. I'm not from here. I'm from Winter Haven, Polk County. This community needs to move past this case and leave Kaila and Drew Schock alone. Let them and their 2 children live in peace. This family has lost 2 children, Ezra Schock and Uriel Schock. The tragedy of this case is undeniable. A baby's life is over way too soon, and a family has been severely impacted in unimaginable ways. Whenever a child dies, this entire community suffers. This community needs to move forward and start the healing process. I have made a final determination here. I'm not putting people on probation to be walking around this community to rehash an issue or something to come up. I have sentenced her to 5 years in Florida State Prison. I want this community to move forward. The legislature defined this felony crime. A fair and impartial jury found Tracey Nix guilty, and I, as a circuit judge for Hardy County, have sentenced her accordingly. Ms. Nix, you have 30 days to appeal the judgment and conviction of this court. If you cannot afford an attorney, one can be appointed for you without cost for appellate purposes. The state, do you have anything further I need to deal with?
Your Honor, to head off an issue will waive cost of prosecution, so we don't have that here.
Okay. Do you want to reserve on restitution? If you don't, you can reserve it, and then you can either agree, disagree, or say, Judge, we're not having it. It'll go away.
Your Honor, we can reserve it. It'll probably go away. So.
Okay. Mr. Anything further?
One thing I have to say as for Attorney Nix today, and I think I don't know if she's still here, Alex Amanda Fletcher testified there wasn't any car.
I understand. I understand.
Because you said that, I thought you said there was.
You're talking about the car seat?
Obviously, we disagree about the remorse. I'm not going to argue with that. We also have a motion for supersedious bond.
You're absolutely correct. Once you file your notice of appeal, the supersedious bond statute will go into effect. You'll then have a hearing on your motion. But the first thing that has to happen is the notice of appeal. Once that's happened, send it to my JA for your information. Ursula Nathy is my current JA. Next week, my new JA will be Julie Cochran. Her email address will be circulated on the website. It'll be J. Cochran. So file your notice of appeal. You can either reiterate the motion you've already done on supersedious bond or file a new one. And then I'll set a hearing time that's commensurate with both of y'all's calendars. Mr. Coleman and you're my JA. I'll work with you on that, okay? And if you're not going to handle the appeal and you got a public defender, please get your paperwork in sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we have an attorney.
Man, that judge was rough, wasn't he? Well, I think that judge has spoken to the parents. I think that judge has made a relationship with those parents. So this is just my own opinion. You know, he's done, made up his mind. He already made up his mind. And, one of the things, too, is eyewitness testimony. Think about how unreliable it is. And I'm guilty of it. I have remembered something several different times over the years. I would remember something a certain way and then maybe find a video of what I thought I remembered and watch that video and realize I was wrong. I was wrong about that, But if I hadn't watched the video to see that I was wrong, well, honey, I might have swore up and down and swore under oath and everything else if I hadn't seen that video. And a lot of times people just don't ever have the chance to see that they were wrong over something. Or they just don't want to admit it, But this case is just tragic. It really is. We need to take into consideration and learn all that we can. If we don't know something, if you have a baby or if you have grandbabies and it's been a while, refresh yourself, on all the things that that we need refreshed on. I don't know. It's just awful. I agree with a whole lot of you all. I don't think I would have let them watch my second one either. And if they did, I'd probably be calling every 30 minutes just to make sure everything was okay. But I've kind of been on the both sides of the spectrum. When I had my oldest son, when I was like 19, 20, everybody wanted him all the time. All the grandparents wanted him. Oh, let us keep him tonight. Oh, well, let us keep him tonight. I was young. I was like, okay. That means I can go out this weekend. That means I can go party. And so I had too much help with him. And my mom ended up raising him with my 2 younger ones. I can count on 2 hands just about how many times they had ever stayed away from me with anybody else other than daycare and school until they were probably 10, 11 years old, 12. They just started going and spending the night with their little ball playing friends in the last few years. It's important to keep them home, y'all. It's important to keep them home, keep them sheltered to a certain extent. I mean, I don't know about being a helicopter parent. You know, I'm not a helicopter parent, but there are some things that I probably do that I shouldn't have done. Like I tied my kids' shoes forever just because it was faster. We were always running late, so it was just easier for me to tie their shoes than to wait on them to tie their shoes. Little stuff like that. So they were older before they learned to tie their shoes. But I don't know. Just keep them all in your prayers. Janelle, the ego is so limiting. You know, so many of us want to say, I do too. I want to say it. I want to say, well, I ain't going to forget my baby in the back of the car. I'd sure hate to say that and then do it, you know. So I've kind of learned a long time ago, never say never. And it can always get worse. Don't ever think that whatever you're going through, it's the worst that it could possibly be. And no. It can always get worse. Trust me. So don't look around at what other people have and be depressed and sad that you don't have it. Don't do that. All that does is hurt us. You know, it hurts our spirituality and our emotional health and our growth. You know, we have to be grateful for what we have because there ain't none of us promised tomorrow. Those little babies didn't even get 2 years each. You know, ain't none of us promised tomorrow. How many people go out and get in their car and drive down the road and they don't never come home? So be grateful every day we wake up. The Lord has given us another day. And we always have the chance to start over. Every morning, we got the chance to start over. If we screw it up today, tomorrow we got another chance. So, anyway. All right, y'all. Well, I will see you tomorrow, and we will pick back up with old Cult Mom in the morning. All right, guys. Stay warm, stay blessed. Peace out, Girl Scout. Like it, love it, or leave it. Bye.
You can't hide from hillbilly crime.
You can't hide from hillbilly crime.
You can't hide from hillbilly crime.
You may not know that there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair.
Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dark pass away, get the sound of a shotgun shell.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. the mountainside, a treacherous reality in the pines.
Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't mask the cries. Shadows call